Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. Since patriotism is very big here at Necromaniacs, we decided to take, that week off to observe the Independence here, Independence Day in the United States. And,
Yes.
for you Canadians out there, it's like Bastille Day here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So yeah, Jeff, how you been? How have you been?
I've been all right, man. Not really doing much. I didn't watch a lot in the last week, although I think you and I did watch the same film this past week. I watched Jan Svankmeyer's Faust because of our conversation about stop motion. Got me thinking about that movie, and it'd been a while since I've seen it, so I watched it.
Yeah, I mean that we were planning on actually talking about it, and we still should, but I think we
Yeah.
opted to do this one because it seems to be it just went up streaming and like it's more timely to hit this one, you know?
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Yeah, totally. But yeah, I watched that, and I watched my girlfriend, who's a big video gamer. She just got a horror game called Evil Within 2, and that
Oh,
kind of it's weird. I'm not like a big video game guy, but I enjoy watching someone play these kind of horror video games. Survival. Shit jumping out at you. It's fun. And if you're a gamer out there and you're listening, I'll take any suggestions because they're fun. What
I,
about
I
you, Mike?
well, you know what, man? I would love to get into some games, but at this juncture in my life, I just don't have that kind of time right now. But maybe,
Yeah.
maybe down the line, man. I remember back in the 90s, I was like into like Doom and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I remember I had a friend that was moving and he was getting rid of everything. Gave me like his PlayStation 1 for like $20. Like, so this was like, late 90s, and I ended up being like addicted to playing Tomb Raider for like 2 years.
Yeah. It
Yeah, but
it's
that
a
was like the last time I really played any video games with any sort of regularity.
Yeah, it's addictive, man. Because I remember when I was doing that stuff, I was like obsessed with it. And I play like, it would shoot the whole day down, the whole weekend would be spent playing games, and that's cool here and there, but there's other things on the docket for me right now.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, well, just FYI, everyone, I might sound a little different because I'm using a different microphone because I am in the process of moving, and between it's in that beautiful phase of being partially in your old spot and then partially in your new spot. So
Mm,
I moved all my microphones and all that sort of stuff to the new place. And right now I'm using one of these like MS Teams style meeting headset to do this episode. So hopefully I don't sound too bad.
I can just picture you like laying on the floor in a completely empty room. Like,
Yeah, it's like not quite like I have like maybe 3 more solid days here, including, not including today, but like my internet's getting changed over in a couple of days. So I'm going to be working here one more day from home and then 2 days in the office. And then uh that's once the internet gets changed over, that's pretty much all right. This is where I live. It's
yeah,
like I
yeah,
work, I spend a lot of time working at home. Like I work at home probably like 3 days a week at this stage. So that's when I just can't be here to do that.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, the internet has become the most crucial part of the moving process, it seems. You're like, all right, when's the internet going to be set up in the new place? All right, that's when we'll be there 100%.
Yeah, and it's like, and all that stuff's set up, all the utilities, everything's sorted out. I had this, I made a spreadsheet to help manage this whole move and make sure everything's done the right way. And
Smart.
that's what I do, man. I plan stuff.
Oh God, I'm
So
so chaotic, man. Like everything I do is just completely chaotic.
yeah.
A spreadsheet's a very good idea.
Oddly enough, though, and maybe it's because I haven't really been able to go to the gym because a lot of it's like moving stuff and organizing and just things that eat up my after work time. So
Mm.
I found that I actually have watched quite a bit of things, usually later in
Oh,
the evening. Yeah. So a movie that I had never actually seen before, and I'm embarrassed to say that I saw Strangers for the first time this past couple days.
oh, the first one.
Yeah, the one with Liv Tyler and that other guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think that other guy. That's a good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
God, that's like 20 years old at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it it's interesting. I actually thought it was pretty good. Bleak ass ending, man. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
like they
yeah.
seriously go there. You know what I mean with the ending of that movie.
They definitely do. Yeah, I remember it being okay. I didn't love it. I used to deliver groceries to the director of that movie.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, out in, well, I'm not gonna say where he lives. Um,
Yeah, it's 309, like deep Cielo Drive. Like, yeah.
yeah. But dude was constantly on his phone and was constantly smoking. um, so I don't know, always seemed to be under some sort of a duress or whatever. But he made a great movie. Well, it was good. Called The Monster. Maybe like I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. Did you ever see that?
All right, was that the one that had to do with like some sort of apocalypse or something like that?
No, that was Monsters.
Okay.
From the guy. Yeah, he directed the first American Godzilla reboot. He did Rogue One. Gareth Edwards or something like that. That's really good. Monsters. I highly recommend that. The Monster is like about a woman and her daughter, like in a car on like a desolate road, and and the car is broken down. There's something out there. It was good.
It sounds cool, man. I think I'd check that out, you know.
Yeah,
The
yeah, it should.
the funny thing about Strangers, and for any guys who listen to my interview with my interviews with Mitch Oliver, the filmmaker, we kind of had this funny commentary about new metal and horror.
Really.
Um, yeah, and I gotta say, Strangers, it's kind of like a new metal horror film in some ways.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a interesting
And
connection.
I'll expand on that, and you'll understand why I came up with that. It's the masks. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah.
there's something about the early 2000s and masks and corn and not so much Limp Bizkit, but like I watch that and I hear new metal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that weird like head tilt that some of those guys do.
Yeah, it's
um,
like the two things go hand in hand.
yeah, wow, that's very interesting. I sort of I can appreciate that comparison. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe when one of the strangers should have like a 5 string like green string bass and
Yo,
like a braided
I have a five
goatee.
string. I have a five
I
string
know.
bass, so don't front on that.
Oh yeah, we've had this discussion before about the five
Yeah.
string bass.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
cool
just
though.
yeah, running down the other stuff. So there's a movie on Netflix called Worst Roommate Ever. Um,
Mm,
but Blumhouse actually produced it. So Tina and I have been watching that like at the end of the night to go, kind of fall asleep because the incredible amount of stress that we've been dealing with right now. Faust, I watched that too.
yeah.
Brandon Legion recommended a film called Into the Abyss, which I checked out, and that's
Oh,
pretty cool.
okay.
It's like a apocalyptic film, survival kind of film with like some Lovecraftian cosmic horror elements to it.
Where did you
And
watch
it
that?
That's on Tubi.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Also on
right.
Tubi is I checked out once again, and this is like almost like a comfort show for me, is Grave Encounters.
Oh, wait. That was a TV show? I thought that was a movie.
No, it's a movie.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, it's like a found footage movie, right?
Yeah, it's about like it's a found footage sort of thing with like these guys who are making a reality TV show about the paranormal and they stay overnight at this
Yeah.
facility and things go to hell.
Yeah, I remember kind of catching that on TV, not knowing anything about it and being completely sucked into it. Like it's good.
One of the better ones, and it's funny talking about the early 2000s like that. I feel like it came out around that time and maybe like similar to Strangers, and I
Mm.
feel like that kind of thing has an almost like a nostalgic charm to it at this stage, like the new metal aspects of strangers and that kind of found footage, reality TV, paranormal, going to hell overnight kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny to watch things from the early 2000s and like they're weirdly dated in some aspects. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, did I ever
Yeah.
tell you that? Did I ever tell you I met Liv Tyler?
No,
Yeah, I met her in Berlin actually in the 90s. The
really.
My old band was on tour with Fetus and Bark Market, and we played a show in Berlin. And that show was like everyone was there. Like Casper Brotzman was there, the dudes from Neubauten were there, and
Wow.
Liv Tyler.
That's pretty
So
random.
yeah, I spoke with her a little bit, and very charming lady, very nice lady.
Yeah. Did you ask her about her dad? You're a big Aerosmith fan?
I actually am, dude. You know I'm a big Aerosmith fan, but I'm sure she, everyone wants to know about Steve Tyler all the time,
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe not so much anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, but back then definitely.
That's pretty. It's funny to meet like a celebrity at a show. I remember kind of briefly saying hello to Chloe Sevigny at some place we played. Actually, no, it was Mogwai. I went to see Mogwai and was backstage, and so was she. And people are like, "Oh no, I don't know how she got here. No one knows her, but I guess when you're
Well,
famous, you can just go backstage."
not just to bring this up, but she was at a show that our bands played together at CBGB's once.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, she was wearing like this like weirdly like formal dress,
Yeah. Yep.
if I remember that correctly. Yeah,
I have vivid memories of that night, actually.
yeah. It's kind of hard to forget. She's a big movie star.
Yeah. So yeah, you know the deal. It's like it's kind of
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
it's not. Sometimes it's cool when you meet like a celebrity and they're nice and Liv Tyler was very nice, very friendly, very well spoken, that sort of thing.
yeah. Do you remember? I think you were at the show we played with the Melvins and Joaquin Phoenix was backstage.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, I do remember that. Yep.
So weird. Yeah,
Dude.
just walked back there and like I was like, that's a dude from Gladiator. What's he doing here? Oh man. Yeah, interesting guy. To say the least.
Actually, since we're on this roll, Adrian Brody was at a Tomb show in North Carolina.
Really?
Yes.
Oh man. Did you meet him?
No, but I saw him in the green room and like I was like, oh, interesting. But like I didn't want I always
Yeah.
feel weird. So after a while, I kind of felt weird about talking to people sometimes that are like filmic types,
Yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah,
Because
they
like,
just
what do you really say to them? Like you're expecting them to be like a certain way, maybe, and they're not like that person.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I the same thing. I don't go, hey, I'm a big fan. Like I rarely ever do anything like that because it never goes the way you think it's gonna go.
Because like at horror, I learned this kind of at horror conventions too. Like when you talk to someone not in the appropriate moment,
Yeah.
where like because
Yes.
a lot of these guys like you got to pay to like get photographs with them and stuff like that, and they're doing their thing, and they kind of feel like outside of that designated time, they don't want to be bothered really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I remember my friend telling me like they went to a horror convention and went back to the hotel and they said Jeffrey Combs was sitting at the bar and they were like, you could just tell by his body language he did not want anyone bothering him.
Yeah, because
It's like,
they've been on all day, and Tom Savini's kind of like that. You know, I ran into him before the doors opened at the horror convention that new the one that's out in Worcester, and we had a table there, not Necromaniacs, but when I was doing the coffee company, and
yeah,
he was walking around, and it was before the convention started, and I was able to ask him for a picture. He took the photo graciously, but I can tell that he kind of didn't want to do it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yes, yep.
And I was like,
Yeah.
mental note, don't do that again. So,
That happened between a friend of mine and David Cronenberg. My
oh
friend went
wow,
to a test screening of A History of Violence.
wow.
And after he was there, and then afterwards, my friend ran out and was like, had a piece of paper and was like, can you please sign this for me? I'm a huge fan, which he did. But there was he's like afterwards, he barely like looked at me and just kind of like walked away. He's like, yeah, I think I kind of fucked up. I think I kind of annoyed him.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, back in the dim past when New York City was like awesome, you might not remember any of these, you younger listeners, but we used to have a practice space in the Lower East Side and on Rivington Street and or Stanton Street, sorry, and right around the corner from ABC No Rio, actually. So I remember I was getting off the subway and I was crossing street and I saw Jim Jarmusch
Oh wow.
walking in the opposite direction from me. So we were passing each other and like I made eye contact with him and he knew that I knew who he was, but
Yeah.
he was just like, this fucking guy, he was looking at me like, look at this piece of shit. Like, I hope he doesn't say anything to me, like I know he recognizes me. So I just kept going.
Yeah, well, he might actually know who you are. Dude is like really into like, heavy music and shit.
I never thought of that, you know?
Yeah.
It
It,
always blows my mind when someone famous knows who the band is, or like Josh Barnett, like a guy like him, who apparently he'd been a fan of Tombs for a long time, and I was like, fuck, man, that's fucking sick, And but he's like a metal nerd, like that dude knows so much about everything. I mean,
yeah.
the guy's an intelligent guy anyway, but he's a big fan of like this type of music.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool. Like, what's even cooler is when like like a celebrity who's like into you but doesn't make it known. Like, this has been up for debate. Apparently, William Defoe came to see us at the Bowery Ballroom in New York,
really.
and we were taught. Yeah, and like the member of the band who spotted him was like, "Yeah, he's out there. He's out there." Like, and didn't want to try to come backstage and say hi or anything like that. Just watched the show and left.
That makes him
So
even cooler in my eyes.
yeah, exactly. I was like, that's awesome. Just like he's not trying to be like, hey, I'm Willem Dafoe, but at the same time, man, how much would you love to just talk to Willem Dafoe for like 15 minutes?
That's pretty cool because you know that he could have contacted his agent, his PR agent or something, then they could have contacted your booking agent and he could have got on the guest list somehow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easily, of course. Yeah. So
Yeah,
much respect to Willem Dafoe.
hell yeah. Before we get going too far, let's run down all of the other horsemen. So, as you know, at this point, we're part of an elite group of content specialists known as the Horsemen of the Podcast Apocalypse. So, kicking things off every other Monday, we have Brandon Legion bringing you Horror Wolf 666 every Tuesday without fail, except when he goes on vacation at the end of the year. We have Into the Necrosphere brought to you by the one and only Jackie Smith. Wednesday is Everything Went Black, which is you get what you get on that show, and every week is an adventure. So that's my on long running, ongoing dialogue with all you guys. And Thursday, I come back with either Jeff or Mike Scandato, and we give you the Necromaniacs horror podcast. Friday, Spitball Media comes at you, featuring Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper. And Saturday's a day off. And
Mm-hmm.
Sunday, Carl Hikara brings you Soul Knox, which is his second day of giving you episodes, Thursdays and Sundays. And Carl and I are in the middle, maybe not the midpoint just yet, but of doing our Darkness Weaves collaboration where we cover the work of Carl Edward Wagner. And right now we're doing his Kane stories, Kane short stories, and going to be rolling into doing the Kane novels fairly soon. And out there in the abyss, we have Iblis Manifestations brought to you by none other than Cheyenne of the band Trivax. And before we get going, I just want to make another announcement that it came to my attention that Luke Kohler of Sick of It All has been diagnosed with cancer. And if any of you guys follow us on social media, you've seen that I posted some stuff about that. And particularly Mike Scandato is real close with Lou. Um,
Yeah.
and I know we're probably going to talk about it again next week. Just there's a GoFundMe out there to help cover his medical bills. And so please, if you are inclined, give what you can give. Lou's a great guy. Like I've known Lou for quite a while as well. Lou was part of the Brooklyn Monster Factory crew back in the day, the comic shop that Mike and John owned together. And Lou is that, he's part of New Comic Day, man. We would get together we'd have the same cast of characters show up on New Comic Day right after work. I get there like around 6:30, and like we would stay until closing time, and we would just all together talking about the new stuff that came out, talking about horror movies, talking about movies, bands, whatever. And it was such a great era. And Lou is part of that, as well as being, a legendary sick of it all. So if you could find a couple bucks, definitely give to it. I am pulling for Lou. We're all pulling for Lou. And if there's any justice in this world, Lou will make it and come out of this thing on top. So
Yes, he will. That's what we're all hoping for. Yeah, just like you said, a legend in the hardcore scene, without question. I mean, if you grew up listening to hardcore, there's just no way you weren't like Sick of It All was probably one of the first records you got, you know?
yeah, and I mean, yeah, exactly. But also, I mean, sick of it all in a lot of ways transcended hardcore. I mean, they
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 did.
were just a sick, successful band. They would be out there. I remember, they were just like a band, like a household name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. The shows were absolutely insane back in the day.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys could find your in a couple bucks here and there, definitely give to Lou.
Yeah,
He's one of the good ones out there.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we have the Necrophone, couple calls this week, couple three. Uh if you want to get at us, you can hit us at 908-913-0782. 908-913-0782. And you can leave a voicemail. Let us know what you think of the show. And we always welcome recommendations. And we got a bunch of stuff coming up on these next three calls. So first
Mm.
up, we have Mike from Telford, PA.
Hey, Necro, it's Mike from Telford. If my voice is too shot to be played, just fucking don't worry about it. I'm on my way to York, Pennsylvania right now to see I Hate God. I just saw him last night at John and Peter's over in New Hope, PA. That's the fucking GPS talking to me right now. That place holds like 90 people. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It was quite a spectacle to be there for that. And I was in Spartanburg, South Carolina on Saturday. See I Hate God with Anti-Scene and JD Pincus. So my voice is pretty wrecked. Want to recommend a movie to you called The Black Pit of Dr. M. It's a Mexican movie. It comes in this set called Mexico Macabre. These things were released on Casa Negra DVD like 20 years ago or whatever. The Brainiac, Witch's Mirror, Curse of the Crying Woman. Brother Emilio, we haven't heard from him in a while. I bet you he knows this shit. Anyway, Black Pit of Dr. M. It's a classic, what lies beyond death type of fucking plot. Two doctors make a pact, and it's very gothic and Bava-esque, even though I think this movie came out like 58 or 59. It's fucking totally worth checking out if you haven't seen it already. I bet you have. All right, brothers. I'll be talking to you soon. Look forward to Thursday. I'm out here in the wild. I've had 4 or 5 days off. I'm feeling pretty good. My voice makes me sound like I'm a sickie, but I'm not. All right, later, fellas.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I Hate God. Seeing them in small venues is pretty cool. I try to catch
Yeah.
them whenever they come through, and that band is like on the road. It seems like constantly. So they're incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. My old band. Was fortunate enough to tour with them for I think we did like 10 shows. Did you play
Yeah.
any of those shows?
Um, I mean, I played so many shows that I Hate God. I'm trying to remember if that. I'm sure we did some of those dates with you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might have. Yeah, great time, and yeah, great live band.
And yeah, and so he saw the show with Anti-Scene featuring,
Mm.
I mean, Anti-Scene are legends too, but they currently feature the legendary Malcolm Tent on bass. And Malcolm.
Yes, of course.
And Malcolm Tent fresh off of his stint as playing bass in Profanatica too, a band that we just wrapped a tour up with a couple months ago.
Yeah, talk about another, a legend of Connecticut. If you grew up in New York or Connecticut, you definitely went to his shop, Trash American Style.
Great guy. I've known him for most of my life, and definitely a really cool guy, interesting dude. And yeah, definitely check out Anti-Scene too. And they're making the rounds these days. Dude, I gotta be honest, I'm kind of uneducated on a lot of South American and Mexican horror, man. But
Yeah,
this Black Pit of Dr. M sounds really cool.
yeah, I actually own that movie.
You do?
Yeah, but I bought it about I think I was living in this got to be like 2005, 6. I bought it. I don't think I've ever watched it,
Huh.
but I
The
do
plot
know of it.
the plot sounds really cool, man. It sounds like something like,
Uh,
like right up my alley. I did find that DVD online, that Mexico Macabre, and it's like $150 or something like that. So
yeah,
I'm gonna keep looking, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah. So next up we got Tavis from Pittsburgh.
Hey, gentlemen, it's Taves from Pittsburgh. Just calling in, listen to today's show on my way into work. Been meaning to check out Stop Motion. Got in the queue on Shudder, but haven't checked it out yet. But I'll definitely be giving it a watch here this weekend. Lately, I watched this documentary recently, and it was called Mom and Pop. It was about the explosion of the video store in the 80s and 90s, and that really got me into revisiting a lot of that fare from my youth, and feel pretty fortunate to have been of age during that era because that was pretty awesome. But one of the ones I went back and watched was from 1986, that movie Zero Boys, directed by Greek director Neco Calls. He did a lot of good stuff from that era. Have to look them up, but comedies and just horror, but a lot of that just video store stuff. The Zero Boys, I don't know, kind of capitalized on that I don't know, paintball explosion or whatever that was during the time. But I don't know, pretty silly, but definitely worth a watch. There's some familiar faces in there from that era. And then another one I watched was Destroyer from 1988. With Lyle Alzado. I always remember that cover in the store of just juice to the gills, oiled up Lyle Alzado with a jackhammer, and that tagline that said, "Over 3,000 volts couldn't kill him. It just gave him a buzz." But like you said, kind of silly movies, but they're fun to revisit. Like I said, good documentary too. Yeah, if you're around from that era, I would definitely check it out. And even if you weren't, you can see what you missed out on, because it was definitely a good time. But back to Nico Masterakis, made me think his first movie, Island of Death, from the 70s, mid 70s. If you haven't seen that, listeners out there, don't look into it at all. Go into it cold and just watch it. You can find it on some streaming sites, and I know that Arrow Video put it out, but that's definitely worth a watch as well. But anyway, gentlemen, hope all is well with everyone. Thanks for the shows, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
That sounds like a really cool documentary, that Mom and Pop doc.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. These other movies, Tavis, I gotta be honest, I'm completely unfamiliar with the Zero Boys. And I mean, obviously I know who Lyle Alzado is, the
Mhm.
former Oakland Raiders defensive lineman.
The real Raiders.
Yeah, the real Raiders, not the LA Raiders.
Or the Vegas Raiders.
They're in Vegas now. That's right. Damn, dude.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Wow.
I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, Pimp Destroyer, that sounds like a great name for a band too, by the way.
It does.
And yeah, Nico Masterakis, Island of Death. I actually own that, but haven't watched it yet. So it's definitely right now it's packed up in a box, but
Mm.
it's something that I actually kept that out because I wanted to see that movie, but now it's like it'll be probably a couple weeks before I actually watch it.
Yeah, God, yeah. That's another part of the moving when all the shit you really care about is packed up in boxes.
Well, I actually kept a couple of books out in my bag that I'm fixing to read soon. You know what I mean? Like there's a couple of things that are like I kind of like knew that if I packed it in a box, it might be a month before I see it again. So grabbed a couple titles that are on deck right now to go, check out, like a couple things here and there that it's like some of that Legati stuff that came out, the Mark Samuels book.
Mm.
There's like the first book of the Prince of Nothing trilogy, which Carl told me about, and yeah, that kind of stuff. But so I know where it is, Um, so now the return of Stuart.
Hey, Necromaniacs. This is Stuart calling in again. Just wanted to tell you how much I love the Don't Torture a Duckling episode. It's one of my favorite movies, so I love hearing people talk about it. I also checked out the movie Lowlifes on Tubi that Mike Hill mentioned. That was a really cool movie. I had a lot of fun watching it after a long day, so thanks for that. Lately, I've kind of fallen down what you could call a Jess Franco rabbit hole. I've watched 37 of his movies, which sounds impressive, but considering he did like 200 films, that's probably like 18% or something of his filmography. But one thing I wanted to mention was I really liked revisiting the the film Vampiros Lesbos on Blu-ray. And then the next day when I was driving into my office, I listened to the older episode where Mike and Mike talked about that film, so that was pretty fun. Also really loved a movie. Well, there's actually two titles of this particular film. It came out on DVD by Redemption under the title A Virgin Among the Living Dead. And then the director's cut is called Christina, Princess of Eroticism. However, I don't think either one of those are the title that Jess Franco intended. But if you ever get a chance to see the director's cut, which is called Christina, Princess of Eroticism, I highly recommend it. I'd probably put money that maybe David Lynch had seen that movie. Definitely got some Lynch vibes from it. Very kind of surreal film. But yeah, that was pretty cool as well. So it's kind of dangerous when you start exploring Franco, since not all of his movies are good, and some of them are hard to find, so you have to pay for them, and it can be a little hard on your wallet. But it's been pretty fun. Anyways, love the show, and I look forward to Thursday. Take it easy.
Great hearing from you, man. And Don't Torture a Duckling is probably one of my top 5 to 3 top movies by Lucio Fulci. It's a great movie. One of his finest works, in my opinion.
And one that people don't talk about so much, as I believe you guys pointed that out in your episode.
Well, that was kind of the mission statement with our covering of Italian horror. Like, we wanted to hit the movies that were a little bit more obscure, because everyone talks about Suspiria and Zombie and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to hit the less known ones. And I'm glad you checked out Lowlifes. I enjoyed that movie. It was fun. Mitch Oliver is a interesting guy, very talented. We got a lot of friends in common too, which is nice. And he's like one of us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. Jess Franco, dude's got like 1,000 movies out. It's like, but that's a very valiant effort that I think, Stuart, and I appreciate that. And yeah, Vampiros Lesbos, classic. I tried looking up Christina, Princess of Eroticism. Like, that sounds like a great title, man, honestly. But I'm still looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something, sometimes you really got to dig to find those, those obscure ones.
Yeah. So thanks for calling, everyone. We love these things. We love hearing from you guys, and definitely come back at us in the future.
Yeah, let us know if you've had any celebrity encounters like we just talked about for 15 minutes.
So that brings us to this week's feature, which is In a Violent Nature, a movie that seems to be getting a lot of heat in the horror community. A lot of discussion has been going on about this film.
Yes, and after seeing it, I know why. Mike, we talked about it very briefly on an episode we did a few weeks back, that you had seen this in the theater, and I think the only thing you said was mixed bag.
Yeah. I knew we were going to talk about it at some point, and so yeah, it was Tina and I watched this film. It's one of our like road trip movie nights where we saw it in a place called the Titan Lux out in Manville, New Jersey. And the theater was killer. The theater was like one of these like dine-in style places. They had a nice little cafe, like you can sit down and have coffee or beer or wine or whatever you want before the film starts. And I was clean, friendly people. I did notice they had an armed guard there, which I was confused about because it was actually a nice little town. It wasn't like some, like it wasn't like downtown Jersey City or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Well, maybe they were doing a screening of The Joker that night.
Yeah. So anyway, this film was written and directed by Chris Nash, who I don't really know anything about. Do you know anything about this guy?
Not a lot. I know he's Canadian. He worked on Psycho Gorman a little bit in the effects department, I believe, and I think he had a
Oh,
small part in the movie as well.
okay. We covered Psycho Gorman, but when it came out, me and Mike did like a while
Right.
back, and
Yeah.
that
He
that's
didn't
part of that.
direct it though.
Yeah, that's part of that Astron crew, the guys who did The Void, and like that. I'm actually a fan of that little production company, so
Yeah,
yeah, it's
for
kind of
sure.
cool that he had something to do with that.
Yeah.
So it was released January 24th, 2024 at Sundance, and then to a wider audience, May 31st, 2024. 94 minutes long. Felt like
Hmm.
longer. Felt much longer to me, but it was 94 minutes.
It did feel a little long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Run down the cast real quick. Bunch of Canadians, I'm assuming. We got Rye Barrett as Johnny, Angia Pavlovic as Chris, Cameron Love as Colt, Reese Presley as the Ranger, Liam Leone as Troy, Charlotte Cregan as Aurora, Lee Rose Sebastianis as Brody, Sam Ralston as Aaron, Alexander Oliver as Evan, Lauren Marie Taylor as the woman who appears
Hmm.
at the end of the film.
Now, I just found this out really quickly looking at her IMDb. Apparently, she was in Friday the 13th, Part 2.
I was going to add that, but yes, she was. So that
Okay.
was like, yeah, that was like a little callback to, you know, sort of homage to the genre that inspired this film. And some people have described this film as ambient slasher.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I saw it as I mentioned this before. Someone said this is what would happen if Terrence Malick directed a slasher movie, uh, which I can see why you would make that comparison, but I don't think this is anywhere near the level of what Terrence Malick does. But I get it.
Yeah. So essentially this is the story of Johnny. Okay. So oftentimes in slasher movies, uh I'm going to focus mostly on like, the two icons of Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. Um, you don't know whether or not it's debatable, like, is it supernatural? Like, what's their true origin? Like with Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, you have it's sort of, in the actual powers that he has are debatable. Like what is the
Mm,
deal with him? Is he immortal? Is he indestructible? Is he a ghost? What the fuck? You know what I mean?
right.
But with Johnny, it's all pretty much laid out to you, what the deal was with him. And which I thought was a plus for this film, that it's very well defined what he's all about. He is a supernatural character. It's wrapped up in there's a talisman basically, which is like this locket, which is if if it's taken from its place, it sort of activates him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a nice little touch to the film, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the backstory with all that was a little like it felt unnecessarily confusing or complicated, but we can get into that.
Yeah. So we learned that his background is like he was like to developmentally kind of cognitively delayed, slow sort of kid. And
Mhm.
he was accidentally killed by these people who were tormenting him in the fire tower, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, so that was pretty much
But
his
they were
origin story.
really they were trying to get even with his father, who wasn't well liked in the town.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I thought the father would maybe somehow play a part in all this, but I was mistaken.
yeah. So I got to be honest, the writing for this film,
Mhm.
I feel like they might have written this in like an afternoon or something.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. One of the main problems I had with this movie was the dialogue and the acting. It just didn't seem like a lot of thought went into that part of the movie. We're talking about the origin of Johnny, and we get the origin of him at a campfire scene that I think it was all one shot doing like the whatever 360 and I don't think this group of actors was I don't know strong enough to really pull that off believably. Maybe it's in the writing, I'm not sure, but there's just something about the dialogue and the acting in this that feels very stiff and unnatural.
Yeah, exactly. And this movie, like, how should I put this? It's without coming off like too dismissive of it. It sounds like
Yeah,
to
right.
me
Yeah.
it felt more like style over content. Like, you know what I mean? Style, form over function in a lot of ways. Like there was the idea of doing this preceded the story. You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah, 100%. But that's like the style of the movie is its strength. Like, I mean, this is all everyone. I think everyone knows at this point. It's not a POV of the killer, but it follows the killer rather than the victims, which is, I mean, it's sort of unique, but it has been done before. I think people like, I mean, if you watch Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer,
Yeah.
Maniac,
Even
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 parts.
Halloween,
Yeah,
the opening
even
shot.
Halloween. Yeah. And in Halloween 2018, we get like an unbroken take of Michael Myers from, his perspective when he goes house to house killing people. So it has been done before. I'm not like, trying to be like a snob or anything, but it has, but not necessarily, it hasn't really been done this way where I would say 80% of the movie is you're following him. There's extended scenes of Johnny just lumbering through the woods. And while a lot of people found that to be boring, I thought they were some of the better aspects of the movie.
I thought there was way too much of that. I thought that
Mm,
like maybe like in the beginning of it all, there was like it was cool. I'm like, oh great,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But I literally lost interest in the film during the like as that progressed. I started really thinking about like what do I want to eat after we're done here? Like where are we gonna go? Like what's going on? Back home, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's my cat
Yeah.
hungry, like that sort of stuff.
That's
And
funny that you say that because it was the opposite for me. Anytime they weren't following him, they were focusing on the other characters. That's when I was like, I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even those scenes got to be very cumbersome and tedious. And I mean, the movie in general got really boring to me. There's except for there's a couple parts, and there was like literally no tension in any of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Of course. Well, like, yeah, because you're usually following around the people who are going to get killed, and where's the killer? Well, you know where he is.
Hmm.
You're following him. Um, so I agree with you. It wasn't like this like super tense experience, but at this again, I don't think that's what they were going for.
Right.
Like you said, ambient slasher. I think that was more
Yeah.
the mission statement, which I appreciated that aspect of it.
Yeah. No. So I think it's important. Like this film will be noted as like some kind of like important um experimental effort in filmmaking. But so yeah, I agree with you that it was interesting, you know. But as far as entertaining goes and compelling, it really
Mm,
kind of left me cold because my one my criticism of it is like, okay, cool. If you're gonna have this kind of like ambient, um, lumbering sort of vibe to the film, you should spend maybe more time developing the characters and developing a story and having more depth to it rather than it just be a collection of cliches, really, you know?
which it is, yeah. Like there are for as interesting and experimental as the movie was, it's a lot of cliches going on here.
Yeah, I mean, even the character Johnny, it's like, okay, he was a boy like Jason Voorhees, who was like
Yeah,
killed through some negligence, or there was some nefarious, like, getting even for this kid, and he accidentally gets killed, getting even at, with his family or whatever. And then he's resurrected and he's wearing a mask, and the mask called back to like My Bloody Valentine, sort of, I guess.
yeah. A bit of Friday the 13th Part Two, a little bit
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, a little bit of Friday the 13th too. Um, and there was a point where he was just wearing a sack over his head, like Friday the 13th one, right?
Hmm. No, I think there was two.
Or
Yeah,
two rather. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You're right, because the mother was the killer in one, right?
yeah.
Um,
Yes, yes. Which
yeah,
I
so
thought again was going to play into it, but we'll get there.
yeah. And and even like there was definitely some good kill scenes, some innovative like gore in this film.
Hmm.
But it kind of happened, it kind of went by you in a way, except for that, there was that one infamous scene that everyone was talking about with the yoga person.
Yeah, which oh my God, that was great, but like that was another problem I had with the movie. The characters act really almost like aggravatingly stupid
Yeah, yeah.
in this movie.
Unrealistically vulnerable in those situations. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah, like,
I found it funny. Like I found like that scene not horrifying. I found that scene actually kind of humorous because of just how on the nose it was and how much of like a cliched like late 70s, 80s slasher film trope that was, where someone's running through the woods and they fall or something like that. They trip over like a
right.
log. It's, oh, here we go. And it's like, I mean, yeah, it was cool, gross out scene, but I was just like, whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, like she literally sees him and then, she feels cornered. It's either like go off this cliff or, get murdered. And she just sort of stands there like staring. And I was like, most people would probably just fucking take their chances and go down the cliff there.
Yeah,
But instead, she just sort of like stands there and like, oh, I guess I'm dead, basically. And
yeah, that was like, kind of like unrealistic, I thought. You know what I mean? Like there's no tension there. Like you're like, okay, here comes a setup for a display of special effects that we're going to show you.
right, which are great.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the only other scene that really came close to being kind of uncomfortable, I thought, was like when the ranger guy gets cut up, you know.
yeah, and
Like
and that kind of yeah.
that had like a
Um,
darkness to it, you know what I mean? Which I appreciated.
it did, but I feel like that also plays into how this movie doesn't make a lot of sense and didn't really feel well thought out. You say like Johnny is developmentally challenged, but he's shown to have good problem solving skills,
Yeah, that's
and
that's a good point, actually. Yeah.
he can read. um, and another aspect of it is how little I think I said, yeah, the movie doesn't make sense. Okay, like his motivation is to he wants to get the locket back. He that's what he's following, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes up to the kids at the campfire where we get that really long, unconvincing exposition scene, and he kills the kid with the stoner guy with the 80s Walkman in a very, I think it was Friday the 13th Part 5 nod. I thought
Yeah.
he kills the kid. The rest of the kids with his locket is right there in the cabin. but instead he drags this body to someplace to smash through a window and steal the mask and some weapons. But if he's after his locket, why didn't he not kill that kid and then just go in the cabin, kill everyone, get his locket, and that's it?
To be done with
He
it. Yeah.
goes out of his way for no reason. And then the same thing with the ranger scene. There's two surviving kids. They have the locket, but he spends this agonizingly long time to torture the ranger instead of getting the locket. Which again, like, I think it hints that the ranger put him down last time. So he is some sort of like he's after vengeance, which shows, reasoning and logic. He's not just this monster killing machine. And if he was after his locket, well, he could have paralyzed the ranger, killed him right there, whatever, and then kept going. But the movie, he keeps taking these detours from his mission, which I didn't really understand why. It's just there to be there because we need interesting kills. And, if he kills everyone in the cabin, now the movie's over. It's that aspect of it didn't really feel fully fleshed out.
Exactly. And that's definitely like what I was getting to earlier, where there was no real writing. Like it felt like just a series of set pieces, a idea about let's make a slow moving, slasher film where we're looking over the shoulder of the killer instead of telling the story through the, the victims. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean,
then
yeah.
the story, the interstitial pieces were just sort of like thrown together, and they've oftentimes, like you pointed out, don't follow any real logic,
Yeah, like when he finally catches up to the two survivors, one of them jumps out and says like, "Hey, asshole," and then he gets brutally. I mean, he cuts this guy up with an axe for what feels like 2-3 minutes. It felt like, um, when again, like, why is he spending all this time on this one kill and not going after what he wants?
because there is definitely like it can only be one or the other. Like, is he after revenge or does he want to get the locket back? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it seems like I don't know. That's what I mean. That's where the logic falls apart. It's like, is it really that he wants to rest and get his locket back, or now that he's activated, does he want to just kill everybody, get revenge? It's
right.
like the two things don't really reconcile in my brain.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And even like the movie switches from his perspective to the final girl's perspective towards the end of the movie, and I really felt like this movie just really like I started to realize like, oh, they just want to do this just to do it. There doesn't seem to be any intent behind it other than like, hey, won't this be cool? Do you know what I mean? Almost like a Saw sort of thing where they thought of the kills and then everything else is just completely like you're like, oh well, we'll string it together somehow. Um, so this movie, I feel like wants to be elevated horror with some of these things, but at the end of the day, it's really not. It really is just sort of like a typical slasher movie, with the only difference being that most of it is you follow the killer.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And the ending though is the only part that I felt like could have saved the film with like
Yes.
the serious tension that it had. And that I'm going to refer to that as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre part of the movie, where we have
Okay.
the final girl running through the woods, which seems like she's running through the woods in a circle forever.
Yeah, that scene was great with all the
Yeah.
ambient noise of the woods at night, almost like the animals sound like screaming.
Yeah, that was really uncomfortable. And I felt like Johnny was going to pop out at any minute and then take her down, or just the idea that you're in danger in nature, like there's all sorts of chaos and death and things surrounding you at all times when you're out there, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I think that was a real opportunity to like really have some sort of statement. And then when the old lady picks her up, she tells us, because she makes it to the street, a lady in a pickup truck picks her up, um, and tells this like long-winded story about how her brother was attacked by a bear, And I thought I knew where I was like, okay, nature is cruel and unforgiving. There's some interesting things being said there. And the surviving girl really wants to know what happens to the bear. I was like, okay, I get that. She just went through this traumatic experience with Johnny. And for the rest of her life, I feel like this is going to like be what be her existence. This is what she's going to be thinking about constantly. She's constantly going to be looking over her shoulder, feelings of danger. You know, that's why she's like, what happened to the bear? What happened to the bear? I was like, okay, I get all that, but they really needed to tie it in. Like,
Yeah.
when they start, I was like, okay, Johnny's gonna come, even though it defies logic. They've been driving for what feels like miles. Johnny's gonna come out of the woods and get her. Even though he got his locket, he still wants to kill this girl. And that would bring home the point of that whole story. Nature is cruel, things don't make sense. Uh, but it just ends.
Yeah. Yeah. It just ends unresolved, which, but pointlessly, you know what I mean? It's like, I can understand like leaving things unresolved, but like, there was just no point to any of it. Like the ending really was building up to something, I thought, and everything that came prior to that, was just like just a series of set pieces. And I
Yeah.
think that in the end of the film could have really reconciled everything. And it didn't have to be done neatly or in a way that offers resolution, but it really felt just like at the end, they decided we needed an ending. So let's write up a few paragraphs for the end, a couple pages
Yeah.
or whatever. And that's it.
Right.
And it just the whole thing just felt all over the place and very unsatisfying.
Yeah, it really did. And I was wrestling with it all day yesterday about how I felt about the movie. Because as much as I've complained about it, I mean, I did enjoy watching it. I thought the full frame aspect ratio was a nice touch. Really
Yeah.
like I kind of got that as like, this guy was probably grew up on VHS and watched these old slasher movies on VHS, so that aspect ratio makes sense. I did really love the sound design
Yeah.
and that there was no score to this movie at all. There's no music except for, there's a scene where the guy with the Walkman is killed, and you hear the song coming through his Walkman headphones, and it's like, the batteries are running out, and you have this nice like sort of like thing going on. I thought that stuff was great. So the director did, and he clearly loves the genre. I think that in some ways this feels like someone who grew up on these movies. Obviously, Friday the 13th, that kind of stuff. And the killer perspective thing, as much as it's not like the first time it's been done, was cool. I appreciated it. They did something different.
Yeah. No, I agree. And do you think this was supposed to take place in the 80s?
No, because at one point I believe they mentioned someone didn't have cell phone
Oh, okay.
reception.
All right. Gotcha. All right. Right on.
But
Yeah.
I wondered that too. Like, yeah, the guy's wearing a Walkman. But yeah, with most horror movies that take place in the woods in modern time, you have to mention how someone doesn't have cell phone reception, and they did mention that.
Yeah. All right.
Um,
Cool.
but yeah, I thought like, again, like the origins of Johnny, his father is mentioned. Like his father is the one everyone hates, and that's why they end up playing this prank on Johnny and then covering it up, and then the father is killed apparently. Like it's like, okay, they're gonna go somewhere with that. Maybe at the end, the old lady ends up being like Johnny's mom, or she's gonna take
Right.
him to Johnny or something like that to tie it into the lore or something like that.
I
What
was thinking
happened with the father.
I was thinking the same thing that she was going to bring her back to Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's just nothing. um, but yeah, there's things that this movie does get right. It's very well executed. And let's talk like even Johnny himself. I mean, an interesting thing I heard about this movie. I don't know if you're out there listening. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess something like 50% of this movie was reshot.
Really?
Yeah, I think they had a different actor playing Johnny originally, and it wasn't working. and they got someone new, and they were like, well, this guy's doing like I mean, it's the footage isn't matching up with the new actor and the old actor.
Hmm.
So they had to reshoot a bunch of that. Apparently, apparently he had different ideas for the lake kill. The girl swimming. Apparently that was supposed to be one shot that they had. They just couldn't get it done, so they had to like break it up. Again, that was a nice atmospheric moment, like him sort of slowly submerging into the lake, and then the girls, disappearing, and then the body popping up and floating around. I really liked that stuff.
Yeah. Some people
Um,
have also said that they compared us to like Gus Van Sant films, like Last
oh
Days,
yeah, Gus
things
Van
like that.
Sant, like Last Days and Elephant and Gary, three movies I really like.
Yeah, Last
So
Days is really cool. I enjoy that one.
yeah, I liked it a lot too. Yeah, so I mean, it does work as sort of this ambient mood piece, uh, but at the end of the day, it's still just sort of a slasher.
Yeah.
It's still you know what I mean. Like it's like two things at war with each other. It just didn't completely mesh together. You know, but I wanted about Johnny. What did you think of Johnny? Is this like a new horror icon?
I
Uh,
certainly hope not. I mean, I I would have enjoyed this more as a short film instead of a feature, I think.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you certainly would have to like explain a lot less in a short feature. I think that's where how the movie falters. The more they try to explain like about Joe, like it just comes off as like goofy. Why is this locket? Have some sort of magical powers? Why is it just hanging there in the woods for someone to come along and take?
Yeah,
When
exactly.
they
Yeah.
know what Johnny's capable of,
That's
they
what I
know
mean.
he can come back from the dead.
Yeah. It's like that should be locked up in a safe somewhere.
Yeah, he should be
Oh,
paid. Yeah, exactly. Like the more they explain, the more you're like, well, this doesn't really make sense, and that doesn't really make sense.
and I guess that's my biggest gripe with it is that like that kind of like those like leaps of faith work only in the 80s films, like that
Mm,
kind of like, sketchy logic only really works in the original slashers because they were, you know, a little bit more lowbrow in some ways, and you kind of expect things to have like this kind of like, fanciful, illogical vibe to it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. To me, I think they should have just done away with like I don't know, like any sort of like rhyme or reason. Like, it's just something lumbering in the woods and it's trying to kill these people. I think it
Yeah,
would have worked a
either
little bit better.
either that or really put effort into coming up with a cool story, like, maybe it's like some sort of like folk horror, like Tulpa or something, or he's some kind of like mythic creature or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would have worked really well, I think.
That
Um,
that would be a good story, actually, if there's some kind of like legend of like some demon or entity that lives out in the woods that and that would work for me, and then you tell it all through the sort of perspective of the entity.
yeah, absolutely. I think that would have worked a lot better than this sort of almost vague backstory. At one point the ranger says like, you know, oh, some of that is true about the lore or whatever. Like I was, yeah, well, why even include any of that stuff when it just doesn't work? And I don't know, maybe this is like a franchise idea, like they're gonna explain more in the second movie. I
Nah,
always
dude,
hate
I hope not.
yeah, I always hate that excuse, like, oh, they're setting it up for a sequel. Well, fuck that. Like you're watching this right now. I'm not thinking about a sequel. If you want to explain things, make it make sense.
How did this do? Like as far as like financially, like did it do
I
well enough where there would be a sequel?
I think well, I think so. It had a very limited theatrical run, and it did make some money. I think there was enough hype surrounding this that people went out to see it. I think your average moviegoer is probably going to hate this. Like, this isn't like a typical slasher, like as far as the way it's presented. So I can see your average like knucklehead who wants to go see Saw 20 is not gonna appreciate this.
Yeah.
And so the horror crowd, I would say like the reaction seems very mixed. Some people absolutely were through the roof, loved it, and some did not. Um, I'm still, even after talking about it, a little somewhere in the middle. I'm curious of where you fall on this for what you would give it. Uh, how many flame
Um,
skulls you would give it?
I give it a 3. Um, it's definitely worth seeing, you know, but I'm not going to return to this material again. I don't think.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna say 3.5.
Okay.
Because 3 is like, yeah, that's like my lowest. You should see it. And the half is like, well, I appreciate the style of this movie so much. I like this kind of ambient filmmaking, like Gus Van Sant, Last Days. I really enjoy that kind of stuff. And but yeah, the story and acting aspects of it just didn't it just wasn't there, and it was frustrating because I did really like love the style of this movie and thought they were really really onto something and just didn't fully go through with it. I am curious to see what this director does next. He obviously has a great eye for mood and visuals and atmosphere. I'm curious what he does after this. So it's an interesting film that isn't quite there, but I would tell people to see this for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely encourage people to see it, you know, but don't go in there with very, very low expectations, I think, you know.
Mm. I think I had higher expectations for the movie myself. Like I woke up early and like I was excited. It was streaming. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to watch this. And yeah, so I think maybe if I went in with like lower expectations, maybe I'd be a little less disappointed.
What platform is it streaming on right now?
It's not on Shutter yet. This is for video on demand. You can rent
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I think it was like
Yeah.
$8. Wasn't too much.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth
Yeah, it's worth eight
an eight
bucks.
dollar rent. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I said, I'm very curious to see what this guy does next.
Yeah. And this was a Shutter exclusive. Like this was a Shutter film.
Yeah, and again, Shutter is like the Shutter exclusives they're getting better. Like this is clearly a director with a vision, and it's not you know what I mean. Like it's quality wise, I think Shutter's really really stepped it up. I mean, this year alone,
Yeah.
there's so many Shutter exclusives that you and I have talked about that like are probably going to be in our top five.
Which makes me happy because I remember there was like that period of time where people thought Shutter was going to close and like Screenbox was gaining ground on it. But like I
Yeah,
think this past year, Shutter has really become like the front runner in this whole thing.
yeah, no, I completely agree. Completely agree. And I was thinking, I was hoping this was going to be like my favorite horror movie of the year, and it wasn't quite that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I will see this again though. This is something I will definitely watch again in a year or two, and maybe I'll pick up some things I missed. Maybe there is more logic to it that I missed, but as it stands, yeah, a little bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah. So there you go, man. But before we go, just going to give you guys a little preview of
Mm.
as a result of a conversation that me, Jeff, and the great Selden Hunt had about doing a little sub series here, focused on Australian tough guy horror films, man, which is like almost a genre unto itself in some ways, like those kind of brutal Australian outback films.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to this. We have one movie for sure picked out, and then we have a whole bunch of other ones to sort of discuss and go through. There's a lot more of these. Like when we were talking about it, I was like, God, I haven't even heard of some of these films Seldom was talking about.
Yeah, he's a specialist on that stuff, man. Like, you know, he's always recommending movies to me that I never heard of that are awesome.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Selden's a big film guy. When I lived in New York, Selden also lived in New York. We'd go to the movies together. This little obscure art theater. So he knows his stuff, and he's a very interesting fellow. I think he's going to bring a unique perspective to this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And he's Australian too, so he has his
And he's
own.
Australian. Yeah.
He has his own outback stories too, which you probably have heard.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you guys next week. Take care now.
Bye now.